Welcome to Kinship Cafe. I am your host, Jim Jones, and today I am joined with Gaby Aparicio.
Hello.
And today we are going to be talking about personal transformation. Mm-hmm. But before we do that, would you like to start us off with a song?
Absolutely.
Right on.
Tail between my legs, floating in the dream while drowning in reality. Seems more like a nightmare. It only took a moment's time, running laps within my mind, like a dog chasing its tail, happily and never fails. I wish that was true for me. And there I go again, making up a script that replays 1,000 times. I should have known, none of it was real. When I close my eyes, I jump back in my head, and there I go again, making it up. None of it serves me, making it up. None of it serves me, making it up. None of it serves me, making shit up. None of it serves me. Got to get ahead and just do, yeah. But is that really my truth? As if I need permission to manifest my dreams and wishes. Oh no, not today. Ready to take a stand and just stop making up a script that replays 1,000 times. I should have known, none of it was real. When I close my eyes, I jump back in my head, and there I go again, making it up. None of it serves me, making it up. None of it serves me, making it up. None of it serves me, making shit up. None of it serves me. God, we breathe each day on my knee, by listening to the sounds I make. Focus on the trees, the hummingbirds and the bees, and the leaves are blowing. And I won't go to, no, making up a script that replays 1,000 times. I should have known, none of it was real. When I close my eyes, I jump back in my head, and there I go again, making it up. None of it serves me, making it up. None of it serves me, making it up. None of it serves me, making shit up. None of it serves me.
That was wonderful.
Thank you.
Is that original?
Yes, it is.
And what are we calling this song?
The song is tentatively called The Script.
The Script.
Yes.
So this is a brand new song then?
Yeah, I wrote it just a few days ago, actually.
Wow.
Yeah.
And performed it here for us live.
Yes, first place that I've played it, for sure, except for the living room. But I thought it was apropos since what we were talking about, discussing transformation, and yeah, I thought it was fitting.
Yeah, I noticed some of the lyrics really tied in that way.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have any background for the song or anything you want to tell us about it?
it's, that song just kind of happened all of a sudden, which is really great. And that, to me, like I remembered it the night before, or I started writing it, and then I put it down, and then the next morning I remembered the melody and the lyrics, and that's always like a sign. I'm like, all right, that's a good melody, a good little hook. But yeah, there's a lot going on in my life right now, and I just, we get caught making stories up in our mind, and I definitely can do that very easily, but I'm aware of it. And so some of these songs that I write, especially this one, they're reminders. I write them as reminders, and some days I'll need it for myself, and if I need it, someone else is going to need it too,
Yeah.
So
speaking then of the personal transformation, this would be a key thing, paying attention to the stories that we tell ourselves.
Yes.
Right. So how do you address that issue if you find yourself telling yourselves non-productive stories? How are you handling that?
Oh, in various ways. Some days not very productive. Some days much more productive. Yeah, I kind of. Some days you're just in it, right? And so we say we experience our experience, and I just have to feel it and get it all out, and the emotion of like getting stuck. Sometimes I cry or get angry at myself, or I usually am pretty hard on myself. So, but I won't stay there for too long. Like, definitely a day is, 2 or 3 days tops, and that's even a long time for me to be like, all right, I can't, that's it. Like, I'm aware of what's going on here. If it doesn't feel good, then I'm making something up. You know what I mean? That's how I kind of gauge it. It's my ego talking, or just not. It's not coming from source. It's not coming from God. So I just become really aware when I don't feel good.
Yeah.
So that's the first step to me, is awareness. Just awareness that's not, something's wrong. My body feels wrong, or it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel good. And then I address that, and I'm like, all right, what is that? Like.
Yeah. So with this awareness, then, something not feeling right, a lot of people wrestle with even that first step of how do we even become aware of the fact that we're doing something like this, that we're telling ourselves these ways of perceiving the situation that are not helpful for us. So was this just something that you always had in terms of like this being really in tune with how your body was feeling, or did you have to develop this?
I've always been intuitive, but there were definitely points in my life where I needed a little help. I just felt completely like I've hit my wit's end. Like, I just wasn't happy in life, or things weren't flowing the way I wanted them to, career-wise or relationship-wise, or financially, whatever, all the different domains in life. And so luckily I always sought out people and friends that kind of were going in that path, I guess, just naturally maybe.
Okay. And
I had a friend at the time, when I started I've been to like therapists in the past, and I think that stems from on my mom's side of the family having, mental instability. And knowing that, so that was for me, it was a big awareness as a kid, and like growing up and seeing my mom and what she went through, and
gotcha.
So that was one thing, and knowing that I have to take care of myself, like mind, body, and spirit, and just being physically healthy isn't gonna cut it for me.
Yeah. So it sounds like there's maybe one aspect of it is almost out of necessity, because you're saying you can't hit this space where you're just so unhappy with it that you are forced to change. Have you done anything in terms of like working with mindfulness or any techniques like that to help develop the awareness of what you're doing?
Yes, absolutely. So it's been a process. So doing some trainings, which is the actual transformational leadership trainings that I've gone to, but throughout that, meditating, and I don't even know when all of that started. Gosh, it's been so long now. Listening to I got into Eckhart Tolle many years ago, and reading The Power of Now, and really practicing presence. And that's such a practice, you know, being present, and also mindfulness, and just being aware of your thoughts, like all of it. And it's taken a long time, and then being easy on yourself when you don't catch the thoughts or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely practiced that for sure. And it's a lot easier now to recognize when the thoughts come up and that I don't want them, and to shift, and also to be easier on myself.
Yeah. So what would be an example of how you shift? Like maybe pick like a really kind of simple example of a thought, and how you might go through that change.
Well, what's a good thought, or a bad thought that pops in? I'm not good enough. That's a big one, but that
a common one.
It's a common one for sure, and it's underlying a lot of times. It's kind of disguised. You know, sometimes you're not even aware that that's what it is, but deep down, that's what it is. I'm not good enough, and that. And then I have to write affirmations, or I don't have to, but I write affirmations down. I'll put them on my walls, and then I'll repeat them. I'll just repeat the crap out of them until they feel right, until they feel good, until it's kind of like fake it till you make it a lot of times, and I just keep going. If I'm really in a bad place where I can't shift, but again, I've gotten pretty good at just like saying, okay, I don't like the way that feels. I'm just gonna shift.
Yeah.
And if just doing something like that doesn't work, I'll go out into the sunshine. And if that isn't working, I'll go for a run, or physically like get the blood pumping. You know what I mean? There's certain things.
So really shift gears, like in terms of what you're doing.
Yeah, it's whatever I have to do. Like if something's not working, I go to plan B. And if plan B is not working, I go to plan C. And I just do it until I like feel better. And sometimes like recently, my mom passed away April 7th, so that's been like a month and a half now, and it's been it's been a process. And not only that, I'm just kind of in a different place and doing a cleanse and just trying to get clear, and so a lot of things have been coming up.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of shifting for me, and and just recently, it took me like 2 or 3 days to shift off all of these negative thoughts. And Ray, my boyfriend, he just kept reminding me to just stay positive, and and I was like, all right, I got to take the reins again, and just all I had to do is be positive. I mean, it sounds so easy. It's so simple. I have another song. It's called The Best Version of Me, and one of the lines is, it's so simple, but it's never easy. Being the best version of me, and it's very true.
Yeah.
It's simple, but it's not easy.
Right. And, you know, we've a couple of different times gone into talking about mindfulness and how we can use that to kind of interrupt the event cycle, is kind of what I've called it, where, you know, there's something that happens to us, then there's our interpretation of it, and then there's our reaction to that interpretation.
Yes.
Right? But the problem is that we don't notice that we did that interpretation step. We think we're reacting to the actual event, when in fact it's our interpretation of it. And so that mindfulness gives us that pause to see that. And then, like you're saying, you can tell yourself a different story, right? A different interpretation of that event, which will change then how you respond to it. And hopefully it moves from a reaction to a response. And, you know, that is probably one of the first steps that I think is so hard for people to recognize, is that there is that interpretation, and that interpretation is what's causing that emotional reaction.
Right.
You know? So it seems like this is something that you've really kind of gotten somewhat of a handle on in terms of recognizing that. How did you get there? Was it just because through the trainings, or how did you come to recognize that? And actually recently I just went to a chiropractor who is into energy work, and she was asking me about she asked me like what my sun sign is, you know, what my sign is basically, and then she was asking me about my rising sign and my moon and sign and all that. Anyways, she read me my charts, and I'm saying this because it pointed towards 2 really strong areas in my chart, were this spiritual, intuitive connection to like
I think just, I can't remember how well she described it, but it was something like that. And also this like really strong desire to create. But the way I saw that when she told me, I was like, it makes sense. Like my whole life, the one thing that's constant is that, like I will never give up trying to go deeper and just be better, and whatever I have to do to, like, yeah, that intuition, it's something's guiding me to that, and becoming more aware and realizing that these are just perceptions that we're seeing, and you know what I mean, and just really go deep. And sometimes it's maybe too deep for the I don't know, most people to have the conversation, you know, but yeah, like I even studied the Course in Miracles a little bit, and that's you know, that's definitely in a different area for but I'm into all that. I'm into just learning as much as I can, and seeing what works for me, you know, what works for me, and because in the end it's how can I be peaceful and loving, and how can I bring that to other people and share that. And
those are good.
Yeah,
it's interesting the different ways that people find their path, you know. So there's certainly, like you said, with like Course of Miracles and even going down the astrological stuff is some things. You know, me, I've been much more maybe on the academic or scientific side of things, but they end up kind of in the same place, right? And so it's kind of interesting how there's this space, and there's going to be things that connect better with you than with me, and vice versa.
Right.
And being open to those different ways is I think really healthy.
Yeah.
So you mentioned earlier about Eckhart Tolle and Power of Now and being in the moment. I had an interesting conversation with somebody recently on here where we were talking about music and performing, and how it kind of forces you to have to be in the present. Because if you start thinking too much ahead, right, I mean, that's when you mess up. You have to just kind of be in it. For sure.
Yeah. Music is amazing like that, and it can even pull us out, like the people that are, you know, the musicians that are singing or performing in the moment. I've always found that's another way to get back to if I'm having a hard time, you know what I mean, like to shift, like start singing. And Jason Mraz said once that singing is basically breathing, you know what I mean, and you're focused on breathing, and it's so true. And so breathing is like, you have to be present to breathe. And then when you're singing, I don't know, it's very, there's such a connection to Source and to God when that is being channeled and you're able to sing and play and like not be in your head. I mean, when you're in because you can't be playing. I've been there before in the past where I'm like playing and in my head and I'm singing and it feels terrible. It's like a weird, I'm behind this curtain, but like I'm performing. And I mean, that was when I was younger, and which is what drove me to kind of be like, I can't have that anymore, you know? Yeah. But I've experienced enough now to you know, when I'm really just in that sweet spot where it's just like
that flow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And I think you kind of mentioned the idea that it's kind of like this connection beyond just you, right? Like there's this.
Oh, absolutely.
You were talking about like channeling, but you could also, maybe there's this idea of elation or elevation that happens with that as well. And those are all super important for our sense of well-being and being in the moment and being connected.
Yeah, and the physical vibration that's happening with the resonance in the body and with the guitar, and feeling that and then emanating that. It's like, you know. Yeah.
So, Gaby, I want to bring you back to another thing you brought up, which was how you were surrounding yourself with certain kinds of people. So, why were you doing that, and what kind of things were you looking for when you're trying to find people to surround yourself with?
I'm always looking to feel good and to be happy and to be joyful, and I want what that person has, you know, that kind of thing. And again, fake it till you make it. If like you don't know something, like I always surround myself with people that are better musicians, or or maybe more spiritual or whatever. Just because, just being around that energy and energetically too. And then you attract what you are as well. So it's kind of a twofold thing. It's like I wanted to be something, and then I just attracted it, or I became friends with people like that. And part of it I don't think was conscious. I just kind of gravitated towards that. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But looking back now, I'm like, oh, well, that's what it seemed like.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I want to be around kind people and compassionate and that are full of joy, and they appreciate life, and they're full of gratitude, and if somebody isn't working for me, then I'm not a jerk to them. I just kind of
right.
That's not working for me, so then I walk away, or I just turn my back, or whatever. Like,
yeah.
I'll never. I don't know if that makes any sense, but
no, it does, because who you surround yourself with is going to have a big impact on who you are.
Yeah.
Because we, just psychologically end up mimicking a lot of who we surround ourselves with. We just can't help it. It's
right.
part of this, what they call harmonizing within, like neuroscience literature. Yeah. And so I thought that was very interesting that you brought that up, because you don't hear it too often from people, but it makes a big difference.
Yeah.
And because you become, in a sense, who your crowd is.
Right.
Yeah, and that's kind of interesting.
And it goes for the negative side, too. Like, I found myself being around people that, at first, there was a great connection, but then eventually became toxic, because it just, you know what I mean? So it can definitely work that way. And then you have to just realize, again, the awareness has to kick in, and you have to be like, oh, that's not working for me anymore.
Yeah.
So, I've had to break relationships.
Well, and it's tough right now when things are so complicated and up in the air as far as the rest of our world is concerned, right? There's a lot of opportunity for negativity in a big way. And so we do have to be careful and really watch, like, not just our friends, but also like what we fill our heads with, what stations we're watching on TV or movies, right? Because it'll have an impact. I know that, we got away from having what the kids when they were younger used to call channel TV, right? Because we got rid of TV when they were pretty young. We'd do stuff like, Netflix or DVDs or something like that, but it was much more intentional,
right? Instead
of just flipping through the channels and see what was on. And it was amazing how much that changed in so many ways.
Yeah.
With the kids, we thought when they were little, we thought that we were being really careful about what they were watching, sticking to like PBS and that kind of stuff. And I think Roman, my youngest, was 3 at the time when we got rid of the TV. And it was almost overnight. It's like they stopped asking for things. And it was super spooky. I mean, it was really weird. We had no idea it was having that kind of an impact.
Wow. So crazy.
And then with us, things like just watching regular network news. When we stopped watching that, it was amazing how much better we felt.
Gosh, I know.
Yeah, so the friends, the influences, and it's not to say that there isn't things that are going on.
Yeah.
Right? We're not pretending like there's not issues that need to be resolved. But I'm very much convinced that the more we can engage the issues that are before us from a position of strength, looking at what we've done right and how we've succeeded in the past, rather than from this place of fear, and which ultimately creates apathy, right? Like, I can't do anything about it. And unfortunately, our politics and many other things find fear the most useful tool to try and get people riled up and come together. So we've got a big challenge if we want to try and not get caught up in that fear cycle.
Absolutely. I think I know. So I have a life coach who's a good friend of mine, and also Jim Carrey said this, I think, as well, that people make decisions either based out of fear or love, and that's it. You know what I mean? And so that helps. I think it helps with compassion when, especially people that are like outside of your control, like completely, like the politics and the people on the news and all that stuff. When people are just saying, oh, I hate this person or I hate this politician. And it's like, okay, that's fearful. I mean, why are you hating? I mean, what if you think that they're behaving out of fear as well? Like, so to me, if we're to act out of love, then there's that compassion that kind of kicks in. And it's a practice too, because sometimes you don't want to be like, how can you love so-and-so that's like
right,
killing people, or I don't know, something like really heinous as well, like some type of act of some sort. And I think that for me is where the whole perception, like I see it as like, okay, well, it's not real. But that goes into this deeper rabbit hole of like metaphysical stuff and you know. But
well, anyways. But I think there's a lot of stuff
I digress.
No, that's fine. But even thinking about the more we learn about human nature and how we actually function, it's surprising how much less actual control over things that we have, right? Like we are in a culture that really prides itself on accountability and taking responsibility and making right decisions and on and on and on. And so if people are not living up to expectations, then it's legitimate that they get punished and so forth. But when we start to see how much of impacts our behaviors that we don't seem to have the kind of control over that we would like to, the more we become aware of that instead of buying into this whole you're totally in control of yourself kind of thing that our culture teaches, the more we can have some empathy for people who are wrestling with things too, right? I mean, you can think about how do you respond, you know, if you're hungry versus not, right? Yeah. I mean, you can become very grumpy. I'm not saying you in particular, but in general, people can become grumpy or angry or short-fused or whatever, and that's if you've just missed eating by a couple of hours. Imagine if you had a long-term problem with not having sufficient nutrition or the food you had to eat wasn't good. How would you feel? How would you act? You know, I mean, there's just so much that's, I like the term the lottery of birth, you know, like where you grew up, who your parents were, what your genetics are, all that stuff, what kind of education you had access to, you know, and the more we recognize how those other influences have an impact on us, I think it helps us to have a little bit more empathy for people in other positions, other points of view, and that kind of thing. Do you find that at all with...
I do, but I also think that we are totally 100% responsible for our actions and our thoughts, and we can control those. We can control. You can't control the emotions and the feelings that come up, but they pass through you, and you can control your reaction to them and how you act. That's part of this transformational leadership training that I was part of. We kind of go in and strip down all of the stuff that creates these walls that we can't see past, and get us to really learn that we get to be accountable, 100% accountable. And people may say that, and I think it becomes an integrity thing too. There's a lot of people, myself included, and I have to become aware of that and shift with that as well, that I'll, can be 98% integral on certain things, and that doesn't really work. It's like saying, you know what I mean? Like either you're integral or you're not. You can't be 98% integral. But people want to say, oh, I'm totally integral, but where are you, I don't know, there's something within your life that maybe you're not doing 100%, and that's showing up in this area, and then that makes you not 100% integral. So you can control that, and you can become aware of what's going on, and stripping everything down to where you're so raw where you can see that. That's hard. Super uncomfortable. People don't want to do it. They don't want to do the work. You know what I mean? And I think that's why a lot of these trainings are around, like these. And people do, but I mean, on the flip side, there are people that want to get better or become better humans and
oh, sure.
Do the work. And But
well, it's definitely an interesting area where there's people on both sides of the fence in terms of how they understand the idea of accountability. I mean, there's just, I know it sounds kind of weird to argue for the fact that we're not as accountable as we think, right? And maybe this isn't going to be the time to dive into that too far, but it's fascinating what we see when we understand, from a neuroscience perspective, how our brains function and how they even use confabulation in order to make sense out of things that we did that we kind of did before we were even consciously aware of them, right? And so what do we do with those things? Like you talked about, your mom's side of the family having issues with mental health in different ways. I know that that's been an issue with actually my wife's side of the family as well, and many people. Our first guest we had on here, I think, Veronica May, is very open about her struggles with that. So, those would be some areas where we can maybe say, okay, I can understand where there's maybe a difference in terms of accountability because they didn't really have control over some of these things. But the question is, how far does that line go? How far into day-to-day stuff are there things impacting us that we don't have that kind of control over that we would think that we do? But
I know that's such a, and I can talk about that, but I can also speak about, like, I think they still do. And even with my mom's side of the family and everybody, and it's like this, maybe not everybody would understand or agree with me or whatever, but again, I feel like on some level, either they attracted it or, I don't know, I hate to say it that way, but you're still able to control that on some level. Like, I can't tell you in the conscious, like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm walking, I'm like, oh, I'm half crazy. I can control that. What? How can I control that? Or I'm not discounting that, but it's a different conversation. It's kind of, it's that metaphysical, like, it's kind of hard to like, I'm not, what's the word? Skilled or studied enough in it, or you know what I mean? I'm learning, and but I'm feeling like, for instance, my mom had dementia, and she passed from the physical things that came around. But watching her journey and how I got through it is totally not how other people would have gotten through it, I'm sure. Like, I really focused on non-suffering for myself, and because I watched her suffer so much, because she was caught in wherever her mind went. I don't know where it went, and it wasn't here. It was like somewhere else. It was like in this middle ground, like her spirit was trying to detach and disconnect, but so that whole process of watching that and then thinking about the brain and the mind, the two, how they're separate or they're different. It was fascinating to me, but I really, it made me dive into different studies to kind of, maybe that was my coping mechanism. I don't know.
Yeah.
But.
Well, and it's, any of that stuff is so difficult to wrestle with. My wife does home health care, and for people as they're getting older, and a common issue is the dementia or Alzheimer's, and it's very difficult process. I haven't had to go through it directly, but indirectly I can see how challenging it is. But I mean, it's...
And also, to touch on that real quick, something that's not it's kind of related to brain health, but recently, Ray and I, my boyfriend Ray, he's been reading these books on like nutrition and they're not just workout books, but there's a neurosurgeon that wrote a book. So as far as brain health and dementia, that's what it was, and Alzheimer's and all those, the impact that sugar has and diet and carbohydrates. Yeah. And for instance, my mom had the biggest sweet tooth her whole life, and she never really watched it. And that just kills your brain, and carbohydrates too. Yeah. And really, and Americans are so, the way they eat, like, it's like, I'm doing a cleanse right now, and I'm literally just no caffeine, no alcohol, no dairy, no gluten, I'm basically not eating anything, but no sugar. But what I'm seeing is, like, first of all, everything has sugar in it. Tomato sauce, pizza crust. I mean, you name it, it's got sugar. Mayonnaise has sugar. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah.
But all that stuff, I mean, I really believe it has a huge impact on brain health.
Oh, absolutely.
And people are just not aware. They don't want to be. I don't know. I don't know what it is. Or they don't see it until they're 60 and they've got the first signs of dementia.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, and, you know, people get into a way of life for a long time before anybody happens to say anything about it.
Yeah.
I know one thing I hear, because I've been very fascinated about that too, the whole, I don't know if you follow the kind of biohacking arena of things, but a lot of fascinating stuff of looking at especially the importance of quality fats in our diets.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's such a huge shift, you know, that people are like, what are you talking about? You know, I can eat that fat now that I'm not supposed to eat, you know?
Like the keto diet and all of that.
I mean, so there's been so many different kind of diet revolutions that people are like, oh, here's another one, you know? And they're like, what do I believe anymore, you know? And how do you sort it out? So I get it that it's complicated for people, and if they grew up their whole life eating a certain way, that it's like, well, why should I change it now? But it is, I think, empowering. It has been for me anyway to learn. I've had to really change a lot about what I do with my diet, and you know, I'm not like some super skinny person right now, but I did drop down quite a bit, and it's been all about learning and tracking, paying attention to what you're eating. So it's kind of that awareness as well, not just in terms of our thoughts and how we're interpreting things, but also being aware of what we're doing.
Right.
Yeah, those are all really important things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Super powerful, though, once you get those tools, and the transformation it can make is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed, especially with the, you know, getting more of the right kinds of fats and the MCT oil and that kind of stuff, how much that transformed, like, even the mental clarity and being able to sustain, you know, pretty in-depth thinking for long periods of time. You know, it's just like wakes you up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That blew me away too. I was shocked.
Yeah. So you've been doing more of a higher fat diet then?
We did. So Ray was getting into that. And so he kind of started the keto, and I just joined him just to try it out.
Curiosity?
Yeah, curiosity and try it out. I didn't mean to drop weight, but I actually did, just a couple pounds or whatever. And but yeah, it was great. It was easy because you didn't have to eat a lot, number one, and yeah, the mental clarity and the focus was there, and that became like, oh, okay, well, now I know that can be there like that. So for me, it's like I don't go back to how it was beforehand. You know what I mean? I'm like, there's no reason why I should not.
Yeah, once you get a taste of it.
Right, or have the focus all the time.
And I can definitely tell when I am not eating the way I should, you know, holiday times or whatever. Or getting caught up with, you know, friends going out or something like that. And you're just like, why is my brain not working?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Wow. So we've touched on a number of different things, right? We've talked about becoming more aware of the stories that we tell ourselves and how to shift gears out of that, types of friends we keep, being in the present, food.
Yeah. Very true.
Anything else that you are personally engaging in terms of personal transformation?
Oh, gosh, I think it's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot there.
Yeah, I mean, I think daily practices is a big, you know, daily practices of meditating, journaling, praying, not as much as I do the other stuff, but, and then affirmations and, you know.
So the daily routines, do you find it that it's helpful to build it into like a regimen? Like, I mean, are you very specific about it?
I'd like to be structured. I mean, for me, structure works. So and it's my morning time, and it sets the mood, the tone for the whole day. And then I set my intention. And when I don't do those things, sometimes I'll do one or the other, or maybe I'm not doing all of them, but I have to do something, or else just my day, just sometimes I just become ungrounded, and then stuff's, I don't know.
Yeah. So you mentioned intention for the day. What does that look like? What does that mean?
So every day, sometimes it's different. A lot of times, I have a lot of things that are pending, not finished right now, and projects. So, I'll do a little bit of journaling and meditate just for, 10, 12 minutes, something like that. And then I'll set my intention, and I'll just say, today my intention is to be focus, and to be love, and to be compassion, and I'll say a few things, whatever comes to me in that moment, whatever I feel, and then I'll focus on that throughout the day.
Okay.
Pretty much. So I'll go back to that. If something seems off or whatever, I'm like, or if I snap at somebody, or want to snap at somebody, I'll be like, nope, today I'm focused on being love.
And then do you circle back around like at the end of the day and review things, or?
Not always. I probably should. But when I'm really structured, yes, but that hasn't been happening recently. So, and I find what works at night for me is keeping a gratitude log. Yeah. And when I'm really needing help, I'll write like 100 things throughout the day that I'm grateful for, which is a lot. But I'll just keep it on my phone and just, if I really need to shift an overall, if I've had a period of like not shifting, I'll do like 7 days of 100 things I'm grateful for each day for 7 days straight. And if you don't shift after that, I don't know what will shift you, but yeah. So that's kind of, I'm wanting to get back into, I'm starting to do my practices a little more stringent now, or structured.
So you're trying to find that balance between the structure and the flexibility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not be hard on myself when I don't hit it. I'll be like, okay, well, tomorrow's a new day. I get to try again.
Yeah. That's for me, it's always that juggling act between I want to get structured about things, but then life.
Yeah.
So it's like, how do you work with that, And it's ongoing struggle, at least for me, to find that balance.
Yeah. I'm a morning person, so I'm like, all right, I'll just get up a little bit earlier, and then I'll just throw it in there because that works for me. But
yeah. I like that. So it's been a really fun conversation.
Yeah, thank you.
Would you like to close us out with another song?
Sure, absolutely.
Right on.
So many ways for the world to come undone. Then you walk in the room and it fills with sun. Now time stands still between you and me, frozen in what seems to be eternity. Really more ensemble. Let's see the world together. Deux et moi. We can hop on a plane and explore the south of Spain. Learn all about Dali. Merrily we will be. Then head to Rome and drink fine wine. Finissons à Paris. together. Vous et moi, you and me. Let's see the world together. Vous et moi. Let's see the world together. You and me. Let's see the world together, vous et moi.
Thank you again. I don't think I've heard you sing in French before.
I know, I haven't sang in French either. That's the first song I've written, and if anybody's French out there, and if I mess up the words, please let me know. Yeah, that song is called Vous et moi, which means you and me.
Okay.
And yeah, it's a sweet song.
It is very nice.
Yeah.
What was your inspiration?
Wanting to travel more with my man.
Oh, right on.
Yeah. So and since he's a pilot, it makes it a little easier to travel the world, and that's it. And I thought, well, I think it'd be cool if it was in part French.
And it was.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah.
So it just, yeah.
So I'm just gonna, for our audience who doesn't know, you're actually our first guest who actually flew in for the show.
Oh!
So that was pretty
Surprise!
cool. Yeah, that was fun.
That's super rock star diva. I know, it's like, oh my God. Silly. We were trying to avoid traffic, and so we decided to fly.
There you go. Mm-hmm. Right on. Well, thank you again so much for coming in.
Thank you.
I hope you'll come back on the show at some point.
Yeah, it was fun.
And I really enjoyed it. And for everybody else, hope you will join us again next week, and be well.